Welcome back. The topic again is On the Run, the story of an 18-year FBI pursuit of 5 young men accused of the killing of 2 police officers in Nashville in 1968. And we're talking to the author of that book, Mr. ABrowning. And of course, Mr. ABrowning, before we are joined by the president of the NAACP on our 3rd segment, let's talk about the trial and the prosecution of these young men who are now apprehended and will be tried for the murder of these 2 policemen.
Well, I kind of chuckle or want to chuckle when you say that. Let's talk about the trial and the prosecution. That was probably, Dr. Haney, it was so ridiculous the way the whole thing was put together. It's kind of strange that it worked out that way now, and we're talking now because as of this week, we're probably going to sign a contract to get a movie about this book done. We've got a verbal commitment, and the contract's probably going to be signed. And I bring that up only to tell you that the way that whole thing appeared to be put together to me was like you were writing a script. Here's a shooting incident. Happens in January, and over here is the resolution, and here's the goal, and this is what the prosecution wants, is a death penalty for three black men, Bill Allen, Ralph Kennedy, and Steve Parker.
So they sought the death penalty almost immediately.
Oh, certainly. They wanted the death penalty, and Tom Shriver was the district attorney. He was politically ambitious at that time. I think that's a general consensus. It's not just my opinion. But what they did, more or less, as it appears to me, as you get into it and you start uncovering what they covered up and then what they brought forward that wasn't real or fabricated, they just built it piece by piece, like you would a story or a movie and a fiction, and all geared toward getting the death penalty. Now the only thing that didn't work out in this thing was they didn't get the death penalty. They had 5 jurors that wanted to give those guys the death penalty. Also had 1 juror who did not even want to convict Steve Parker, and that was the lone female on the jury who has been very active, and she's portrayed in the book. But basically it was this ridiculous that whole theory, and it was all theory because nobody really knew that Tom Shriver and that team put together in 1968. They based it on an ambush. First of all, they said that these guys were involved in the cashing of fraudulent money orders, and that's why they stopped the car. Well, that car was never mentioned in the cashing of stolen money orders or fraudulent money orders until after the fact.
So up front it would be an illegal search, stop and search to begin.
Well, a police officer has a right to stop a car, you know, when they want to, but it would be like, yes, them stopping me and you and saying, hey, these guys are involved in fraudulent money orders, cashing of fraudulent money orders, when they had no reason. These guys, it had never been mentioned. But yet they had a police officer go to the witness stand in the first trial and say, yes, I put out a take order, a want order for that car the afternoon prior to. A police officer sat there. Well, that police officer perjured himself. In other words, in 1989, when we get to the second trial that happened last April, the district attorney was asked, was that on that tape by Judge Walter Kurtz? He said, well, we hadn't been able to hear that on there. I mean, it was an ambush. They said that they orchestrated an ambush and waited and started shooting the police officers. They said that one police officer, Officer Thomason, and I don't mean to minimize 2 people being dead, because I mean there's a tragedy there.
Now, this was a black officer and a white officer.
A black officer, Pete Johnson was a black officer who was killed with 1 shot, and the white officer lived for 61 days. It was Officer Thompson. And again, I mean, there's a tragedy, and I don't want to minimize 2 deaths, but I do want to point out that Tom Shriver, as district attorney, comes up with this theory that these guys was shot, and had people up there testifying that Officer Thompson was shot 7 or 8 times, 5, 6, 7, or 8, and started at 8, worked down to 5, more or less settled on 7. Well, they didn't have any evidence of that. But the most important thing was that they portrayed it that these police officers were shot as soon as they stepped out of the car, and the police officers never fired the guns. Well, that's the stuff that I dug up basically for the book that was so different. Those police officers clearly fired their guns that night, and everybody knew it.
And so it was
fired first.
It was on this fabricated evidence that the jury found 3 of the persons
guilty of first-degree murder,
and sent them to the prison, the state prison for 99 years.
Well, it was to be 99 years, and then
now, how long were they in the prison?
They were there 6 years, almost to within 2 weeks after their final appeals were denied in their conviction. Bill Allen, Steve Parker, and Ralph Kennedy escaped from the Tennessee State Penitentiary, and nobody ever knew how they escaped until this book came out.
And this was in 1974 when they escaped. And for the next 18 years, they were on the run.
Well, not 18 years, but for the next 12 years, 12 and a half years for Bill Allen, and 13 and a half years for Steve Parker, 12 years more or less for Ralph Kennedy, which is another tragedy. He was found hanging in a Baltimore police cell, victim of suicide, so say the records. So I mean, you got 3 deaths. You've got a lot of families that were turned upside down. It was a tragedy. It was a tragedy, and never once was it any form of murder.
Well, now, with such a situation, would it be possible to think in terms of trying to do something to make the public much more aware of these kinds of situations? And do you believe that the book that you're writing will help to do that?
Well, I hope so. As I said earlier, I set out just to write about life on the run, and the FBI, by the way, was great in working with me on this book, and I interviewed agents who literally were chasing these people, and not only was the FBI great in working with me on the book, the FBI, and I've got letters from agents, have concurred with what I found about what happened here in Nashville. I mean, they've been supportive of my efforts privately. They can't come out publicly. They can't endorse a public book. But I mean, one of them did say, for instance, the night of the shooting, it was all over the Tennessee, and black militants, and they started here, these black radicals and, you know, troublemakers, communists, whatever you wanted to dub them, a civil rights issue. And the FBI, once they got involved in the case, the Memphis office looked at it and said, as one of them, well, I can't say what he said. He said, black militants, bull, you know. They saw that it was a bill of goods quickly. But what I hope can happen now that I'm into this thing, and I'm really saddened by something that happened last week, is rarely when people make mistakes can they correct them, Dr. Haney.
And the state of Tennessee has an opportunity.
And this opportunity is very real. I mean, a mistake was made, and they can correct it, but there's been an unwillingness to even attempt to correct it, and that leaves me a little appalled, frankly. And a mistake was made to the extent that investigators involved with the prosecution team, some of the police officers involved, have even told me, called me, you got it right in the book. Well, why don't you come forward and tell somebody that's right and do something to help these men?
Very good.
Well, we can't get involved in that.
Very good. I think what we're going to try to do now is to close this segment off and to have the president of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People
Good. JScales2 is a good man.
and talk about some information that not only that has to deal with this case, but I think that this is a general problem throughout the nation in terms of people being incarcerated. And so we'll see what the NAACP has to say in reference to this. And we'll be back with you following this commercial break.